everybody, today we will be making the registration system right now. So we will just go ahead and delete this because we don't want it anymore. And first, what we're going to be doing is we will check if the inputs are empty. If they're empty, we will throw an error. If they're not, then we will save the data coming from the user into the database. Okay, so let's go ahead and define three variables: the username, which holds the post value of the username from the form we created here down there. We will repeat this 3 times. Okay, now email, which holds the email value of the username of the user, and the password, which is the password inputted from the user. Okay, now we will check if these three variables are empty or not. Okay, now if empty for username and empty checks if the variable in here is empty or not, returns true if it's empty, returns false if it's not empty. Okay, or empty email or empty password. We're gonna add another thing, which is filter var email filter validate email. So what this does is this function actually filters a variable in here with a specified pattern. Okay, so if this pattern in here is found in the variable in here, it returns true. Otherwise, it returns false. So if you say if this is not in the email, then it will throw an error. Let's say the errors variable is gonna equal to invalid inputs, and this errors variable is going to be displayed on top of the form. So it's going to be empty for now, and when there's an error, it's gonna throw an error. Else, if they are not empty, we're gonna put them inside the database. But for now, let's test the code that we wrote just now. Okay, now let's write B and P here. Style color red. And this P tag is for the errors to be displayed. So we want the errors message to be red, and we styled the P tag to be red. And here, whoops, we can actually write PHP here, and let's echo the errors message here. Let's test this out. Okay, there's nothing wrong right now. So if we click submit, invalid inputs because they're empty. If you click the mud, if you say the mud, and I'm gonna explain the filter validate email right now. So it's gonna say invalid inputs. What if the user instead of writing something like test@test.com, he just wrote test, okay, just like as a plain text? So this is actually not a correct or not a valid email format. So a valid email format is just as follows: example, like at example.com or .net or something like that. So a valid email format has to contain the dot and the at symbols. So if somebody types like test, it's gonna say invalid inputs. If somebody types actual credentials, it's gonna proceed. And right now here comes the creation of a user on the database. Okay, so we will go ahead and say query equals MySQL I query. Okay, we will create the user right now and say insert into the table, which is register, which holds the values username, email, and password. Insert into these three arguments, or these three columns, the following values. Okay, the following values, which is username, username, email, and the password. And the reason I put the variable between these two quotes here is because we want them to be as string. We want them passed to be as string. Because previously when we created the table, we inserted, or we specified, the username and the email and the password columns to be as varchar, as of type varchar. And varchar means string. It is a sequence of characters, meaning that it is a string. So we have to insert the values as strings. Okay, now we will insert these. All right, we actually explained as well previously that the password in the table has to be hashed, and this is because to give the user more privacy, right? So you cannot check what's the user's password, which is obviously prohibited for you. So we're gonna hash the password through this command. Okay, password equals password hash, password, and password default. I'm going to explain this right now. Okay, now here we assign password to this value. What is this value? Okay, now the password hash is actually a built-in function in PHP, and it turns the this string here into a hash using this algorithm. Okay, so once again, it turns this string in here, which is the password input from the user, into a hash, a one-way hash, using this algorithm. And this algorithm, actually, why am I using this algorithm, is because if you open it on the official PHP manual, okay, if you open it on the php.net, which is the official PHP website, you will see that password default, note that this constant is designed to change over time as new and stronger algorithms are added to PHP. So if there's a stronger algorithm added to PHP, by using this command, you are actually switching to the new, stronger algorithm added to PHP. So that's why I'm using this. Okay, now let's go ahead and test this. Well, before that, let's check if the query is actually succeeded or not. If the query succeeded or not. So let's say if query, then echo user created. Okay, else, let's say, is not working. Okay, so now we're gonna check if the query is true, which means like it created a user and it didn't face any problems at all. So user created, we're gonna print user created. Otherwise, it's not working, and hopefully it will be working right now. Let's open it again. Let's type the mud and the email and whatever password you want. I'm gonna make it 1 to 9. Warning. Oh yeah, exactly. Sorry. My mistake. My apologies. So you have to actually include the connection to the MySQL query function. Okay. I haven't explained this function, right? Let me explain. Okay. So the MySQL I _query actually executes or implements a command into MySQL from PHP. Okay, so it executes this command, this MySQL command, into the MySQL, okay, where from the PHP file, okay. So let's go and test it out. The mud, email, and 1 to 9. Submit, user created. Now when we connect to the MySQL and you see the data in the table, you should see a username with the username the mod created on the table. Okay, so now let's show databases and use forum, and let's select everything. Let's actually show the tables, which is we want the register. Let's select all the data from register. Okay. Now you're gonna see ID is actually 1, and if you create another user, the ID of it will be 2, because previously when we created the table, we said that the ID should be auto incremented. Okay, so each time you add an element to the user, this ID actually increments by 1. Okay, now username is the mod, which we created right there, and email is the mod@hotmail.com, and password is actually hashed. So this gives privacy to the user. Okay, now let's actually test this out, because I want to implement something right now. What if the user put the same credentials in the database? Like, what if he said the mod@hotmail and the mod, but with a different password, like 129 126, and clicked submit? See, it's gonna say user created, and here it's actually added. Well, we're actually gonna prevent the system from doing so by writing this. Before creating this, we want to define a query. Okay, we want this query to handle a value of MySQL I query con. Let's say here select, okay, username and password, or email and password from register where the username equals to the username that the user actually inserted. Okay, so this is gonna be followed by another line, which is to handle the value coming from this. We're gonna add another line that says data equals MySQL I fetch a source, and I'm gonna explain this as well. A query. Okay, so what do these lines do? Okay, let me explain. So the first line actually select the data, the username, email, and password from the register table, where the username is username, and this username is actually from the user input. So, and now this line here, MySQL I underscore fetch underscore associate, and this is, stands for associate, okay, for query. Now this tells PHP to translate that result coming from this function in here, okay, to an associative array, and you're supposed to know what an associative array. Okay, so once again, this function tells PHP to translate query this value, the result of this function, translate it into an associative array. So now it will be easy for us to check if the username is identical, or the email is identical, or the password is identical. So we will be checking. Actually, the password is not needed in this case because we only need the username and email. Okay, so now let's what is this? Let's minimize. Okay, so now we will be checking if the username coming from the user is actually already in the table. Let's see. Okay, now we will be adding an if statement. Let's actually copy this and paste it another way and delete this because we don't want this anymore. Okay, we will paste that code that we copied in another section of the code after a while. Okay, now if data, okay, username. So what if he like entered something like test? Well, test is actually not in the database, and MySQL fetch associate returns null. Okay, returns MySQL query returns null if the username coming from the user is actually not in the database. So this is actually null. Why? Because we said translate the result of this function into an associative array. But wait, this line is actually null. So this is actually null too. So we're gonna say if is null for data username, okay, which is this column, okay. If this column made by this statement here is null, which means it didn't find it, okay, then the user is actually not in the database. So this is not correct for now. So how are we gonna correct this? We're gonna just add a symbol that is not. So if not is null, username, which means that the user exists in the database. If the user exists in the database, we're gonna throw an error and we're gonna say username already exists. Okay, now what if the username did not exist but the email did? And this is done by making the else statement and say if else if, or let's say else if let's say the data, okay, for the email, if the email data coming from the user is equal to the email in this database, well, then it already exists. So we're gonna say here echo, or errors equals to email already exists. So what if these two, well, let's actually set this like this to be else if email is equal to data email, okay. Well, hold up. If the username actually exists and the email does not exist, okay, hold up just a little bit. Else if, I'm just making sure that this works properly because I don't want it to be like excessive or something like that, or like, let me check it out. Hold up. If if the username is not null, okay, which means it's already on the database. But what if the email, the username is different and the email is not, okay? So here, instead of writing this, we will be saying if data, if not, if else, if not is not null for data for the email, which is the same in here, but we're gonna do it on the email. We're gonna say email already exists. Okay, what is this? This is actually not needed here. Okay, here, just like this. Exactly. Now, what if neither the username nor the email exists in the password in the database? This is done. We will be doing that. We will be inserting the username and email coming from the user. Whoops, we didn't copy that. Okay, we will be rewriting this by saying password equals password underscore hash. Okay, and password here. We already explained this, so no need to re-explain it. Password default. Okay, and here we will be inserting the values coming from the user into the database. Okay, so let's say query, and actually defining query again is actually does not affect it. Okay, because in here it held a value in here. Okay, but when we assign another value, the old value is actually omitted. It's actually deleted. Okay, so when we say query equals to MySQL query con and insert into register, which holds the username and email and password, insert into them the following values. Okay, the username, name, the email, and the password. Oops. And the password. And the password is hashed by this command here. Okay, this should be it. Now let's check if the query is actually true. Means like if this is not null. If query, then echo user created. Else, whoops, I can't type by now. Okay, else it's not working. Okay, so this should sum up all of the registration system. Okay, let's just take another look. Oh, here we're gonna actually write the HTML special cars function. Why? I'm gonna explain it right now. Okay, alright. Now, why we're writing this? We write this, the reason why we're writing this in here is because what if the user, like, instead of writing a normal text like test or the mud or something like that, he wrote something like h1 and wrote inside it anything. This is actually treated in PHP as an HTML tag. So if this actually passes into the PHP code, this is actually going to be treated as HTML tag. And by this, the user is actually allowed to edit the page which he is prohibited from. So this is actually really dangerous, right? So we're going to be, by setting this function here, this this tag, this HTML tag, is actually treated as normal text. Okay, so it's actually treated as smaller than h1, bigger than, and the words here, and the following the end of line. Okay, so by this we treat HTML tags as normal texts. So this should be working right now. Let's test it out. Let's say the mud. Whoops, valid inputs. Okay. Let's actually delete this line here. Let's say delete from register username. Delete from register where username equals to the mud. Okay. Okay, we actually deleted them all. So when you select everything from the register, whoops, register, it's actually going to say empty, right? But now when we create another user, just let's say the mud, okay, and the mud here, and whatever password, it's not working. Why? Hold up. Query. Insert into register username password. Why is it not working? Hold up, we will there's an error, a slight error, which we will be fixing right now. Password, hold up, default MySQL connection, insert into register. Put it like this. Email password. Okay, hold up. Okay, hold up. Wait, hold up. Let me check this out. Let's insert into register. Let's say username and email and password. The values, the mud, mud.com, and 1 2 3 4 5 6. It's okay. It's actually, wait, it's actually created. But why does it say it's not working? It actually created the user, right? No, whoops, we created that. Okay, hold up. There is a problem here. Connection, insert into register. Whoops, there's the error. We actually misspelled the word password, which is a silly problem. Oh my god. Anyways, it should be working right now. We misspelled the password word, okay? So it should be working right now. Beside the mud, okay, 1 to 9. Username already exists. Why? Because we already created the username, the mud, and it is there. So let's go ahead and delete this. Delete from register where username equals to the mud. Username equals to the mud. Okay, now select everything from register. Everything from register. Okay, it's empty. Let's create a user here. Let's say the mud at hotmail.com, and 1 2 3 4 5 6. Okay, submit. User created. Let's see the database. There it is. The ID, the username, the email, the password, which is encrypted or hashed. But now you might ask why the ID is starting off from 4. We can actually set this by saying, first of all, let's delete the data inside this. Delete from register where username equals the mud, and we're going to reset the auto incrementer of the ID by saying alter table register auto increment equals 1. Auto increment equals 1. So now it should be starting from 1. Let's create another one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. User created. Okay, let's check it out. Select everything from register. ID 1. The username is the mud. The email is this. The password is hashed. And this is all we wanted from this. Okay. So now we have created this this registration system. We will be creating the login page in the next lesson. Thanks for watching.